Yo, what's up, everybody? I'm your host, Zenitsu, and you're listening to the Digi Talks podcast, the show that covers various topics from news to meta developments and everything in between for the fine folks who love the Digimon trading card game. Just as a quick reminder, right now, streaming this live on Twitch is kind of just up in the air. So right now, my Twitch is just dedicated to other things. So if you want to see me do other types of content, feel free to hop on over to twitch.tv/Zenitsu. But fear not, because the podcast is always going to be uploaded as a YouTube video under the channel of Zenitsu, as well as on various podcasting platforms like Spotify for your viewing and listening pleasure. So please feel free to do the whole social media doobly-doo thing and leave that rating, like, follow, subscribe, review, whatever, depending on the platform that you're listening on. It really does help support the podcast, or I like to think it does. So today I am back with Tesero, and we're going to be talking a little bit about EX12 as probably our greater discussion, because we have two, not just one, but two events to look at, as well as our own personal thoughts as far as what we've been playing, and maybe we'll even get into some of the spoilers, because spoiler season is upon us, and we're learning a lot really quickly about what the set holds. Granted, yes, a good portion of it was leaked with a lot of the SRs, at least the visuals of them. So Bandai's just been kind of ramping up spoilers, probably because of that. So that's kind of neat. But I'm back with Tesero, and where can they find you?
Yeah, hello, I'm back again. I've been kind of away last week, but I'm hoping to get back into the streaming thing soon. But as usual, you can find me on Twitch and on YouTube at tesero. I've been having a couple of connection issues lately, so I was hoping to double stream, but I think I'm doing single streams now, and the connection seems to be worse on Twitch for me, so I might be switching mostly to streaming on YouTube, but I'll probably continue to stream back and forth on both platforms to see works out better for me.
That's interesting that you say that, because, like, I noticed, at least, like, it might have been the method that I was double streaming. I was having connection issues, mostly with Twitch. I was using OBS with a plugin, because otherwise, if I did it through
Mhm.
Streamlabs, I had to pay money for that. I'm just like, no. So
Yeah, I'm also using an OBS plugin. Uh,
it might be the
but when I
plugin.
stopped double streaming, when I stopped double streaming, I was still having connection issues. It might be my camera setup since I'm using Droid Cam, and I'm looking at my resource monitor, and it was saying something about the cam using up a lot of use transferring a lot of data via the Wi-Fi, even when with a physical connection. So I might just have to find an alternative.
Tech is so weird, I swear. Like,
Mhm.
just any number of small factors could do a whole bunch of different things. So, like, when I was streaming on Twitch, I was having lots of connection issues for a hot minute. And then I was doing research and I changed my server because where the signal was coming to and from was apparently a little too far for what I was thinking. So I moved it to a slightly closer one, even though it says, like, distance wise, it's like nearly identical. So I don't know. Tech is complicated.
Might look into as well. Yep, something I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah, so I
Yep.
don't blame you for doing the due diligence and the research on that. It happens.
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess before we get into the data, let's hop over to the comments of the week. Last week, I did a very special podcast with Mario for two different reasons. It was special. One, I managed to secure Mario as a guest. Never thought I would do that. Been asking for that for a whole year, so that was nice. And the second one is the fact that it was 150 episodes. So yeah, that's kind of neat.
Congratulations.
Yeah, technically it's a little bit longer because I did the Wolf's Den before that, and that was through a different co-host, and then we kind of had like a small falling out. So he was the one who was actually running and managing that podcast, so I lost pretty much the ability to upload under that. So that's why I had to rebrand, and the fact that I'm 150 episodes in on this one is pretty neat. So today's comment is brought to you by Global Digital Empire. they stated that they think Doughy, I don't even know how to say that name, capital D, lowercase d, Oughy. If you know how to say that, congrats. Do you know how
Probably
to say
Doughy.
that? Is it Doughy?
Well, it's probably Doughy.
Okay. He right now is a new and emerging content creator, it looks like, and he has the best gameplay channel right now. Card protagonist quality, but weekly uploads. That's kind of cool. Just wanted to give that shout out because a lot of people seemed to be pretty happy that Mario was back, and people really been liking the podcast, specifically since I got you as a co-host. Um, so
Good to hear.
yeah, people are really positive, and Digital Empire was just highlighting another channel because I think we were talking about like how Digimon content is kind of just rough right now. Like it's not
Mhm.
necessarily the greatest time for making like Digimon videos. Deck profile video like viewership is down. Unless you're like one of the bigger channels, it feels like it just seems like it's really hard to gain any kind of traction. So, like, my advice if you're trying to do this, do it for fun. Don't do it for fame or profit or anything. But it's nice to know that there's another channel that's doing gameplay. Have you seen them at all?
No, so I'm gonna start looking into it if it's been recommended.
Yeah. I, for one, unfortunately don't really watch Digimon content a whole lot. I'm definitely more into the live streaming thing. So, like, I'll catch you live, I'll catch Mario live, I'll catch, like, other people when they're live. But, like, actually sitting down and watching content, I don't generally do. Not to sound, like, really self conceited or anything, but the big reason is because I don't feel like there's anything I could learn from anyone. Like I might pop into a deck profile to see like any spicy tech, but like I most decks at this point are solved really quickly. So it's just like when I see one list from Japan and everyone starts copying that list, it's just like, okay, I understand where this came from. Did I need to waste a whole 20 minutes on seeing a deck profile for it? Probably not. And maybe like that's part of the issue with content creation is just like uh the content is like so easily available that it's just not worth viewing in a sense. I don't know if that makes sense. I might be messing or mincing my words up there. But I
Yeah,
noticed my numbers are down on everything but streaming, but I don't make nearly as much on streaming as I do doing other types of content unless people are like constantly donating.
right. Yeah, personally, I do actually watch some Digimon content, but mostly just gameplay videos. Not as much lately, but I did used to watch like a lot of like Japanese gameplay videos, especially because of the fact that they were had used to have like the cards way ahead of time. And, and more than just playing the game, I also just it's nice to like for the decks that I am not that interested in playing, that I just would just or testing myself, just watching someone else test them for me, I guess in a way. Um, you know, because I
No,
don't always have like all the time or energy to play and test every deck that is out there. So it's nice to watch the gameplay videos or just to like maybe like get my eyes on decks that I might not otherwise consider just to see what they're capable of.
I definitely agree with that sentiment where it's just like I watched a lot more content, more so coming from the Japanese side of things because they were ahead. So that way I could try to apply that into being competitive. But now that I'm like, I didn't really lose that competitive edge. It's just I have to learn to not care about that competitive edge, which is easier said than done. Because I still
Mm.
get pretty heated at times, and I'm just like, oh, I could have done better. Um, but I feel like just because now everyone's on even playing fields, like it actually made me watch less content because now we are on all even playing fields. So I don't see the need to seek out the content that's no longer there. Um, but content aside, thank you Digital Empire for or not Digital Empire. Thank you for the comment. It really is nice to hear back from the community. So if you want your comment read for next week's episode, you already know what to do, and leave one on this episode for us to read. So with that, we could probably move over to the events. What do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about TAC first or core?
I don't know. I would core happened first, right?
They happened at almost the exact same time. So core technically did happen first on the 18th, and TAC was on the 19th.
Oh, right. Well, actually, let's talk about TAC first, maybe, because they have a smaller amount of results to look at, right? We have like the top 16 from core, but then we only have like top one, two, three,
Eight,
top 8 plus
technically,
10th
yeah.
place. Yeah.
Yeah,
We
I
have
mean,
like, I just put ninth. Okay.
somebody probably reached out to Digimon Nexus to be able to get it in, because TAC only gave like
Gotcha.
top 8, which is
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
neat, because like if anyone did want to submit their deck for the event, then that's cool that it gets updated versus it just like sitting in limbo.
Hmm.
um but yeah, so as far as the top 8 archetypes, we had TB being of the top 8, so half of it. Then we had Venmon slash Galacti. We had a Malomyotismon as a surprise. Then Glowing Dawn and Time Stranger Angels. And then in top 16, there was a Volcanismon. So, not really that surprising that the decks that were doing good last format in BT25 are continuing to do well, with TB being the very clear standout. The
Right.
Myotis was really weird to see.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, speaking of shouting out content creators, shout outs to Digidane, the Malamyotis player here. Great content from him as well. And he has been a Mallow enjoyer and believer for a while now. So big ups to him for topping the event with Mallow using the new support. I remember him being pretty hyped about seeing the new promo Demi Devi, and it's nice to see that he was able to take that new card and translate it to a regional top.
I saw some people on DCGO, like when I was doing like some of my testing, some people were playing with it, and it took me by surprise. I will definitely say that. The fact that it's a low level blocker with an on delete to then trigger its inheritable on delete later is like really good. I'm not gonna deny that. It's just I'm surprised that the deck is was able to do as well as it did in this current environment, where we're talking like hyper speed and efficiency and everything. And I just feel like
Mhm.
this deck would have been something that got left in the dust, but especially with the limitations, because it's running both the Mallow Myotismon from BT3 and the Skull Baluki. But
Yep.
it
And
just
one
goes
Jackride and one Calling. There's a lot of limited cards in here.
that's purple in a nutshell. It is the most limited color. But yeah, it seemed like if it was able to work, it works. But I do have to address the small little elephant in the room. That usually decks like this are able to do better with a smaller player pool. So usually TAC is around 60 to 100 players in terms of their overall turnouts, um, which is a little bit of a difference compared to a 300 person event. But what place did Digidane get? He got 6th. So that's still pretty respectable. Very
It
respectable.
is
Like,
pretty respectable. Yeah.
yeah. Like, I'm not trying to like put down the deck or anything. I'm just saying like it is statistics, like raw numbers, as a fact that smaller events, other not meta competitive decks are able to do better. Which is why at locals, like, play whatever you want. It's there for fun, and you could win with almost anything, which is the cool part, because a lot of decks are on a very even footing outside of like just, the current meta like cycle. But as far as what won the event, talking about decks that are anti-meta, that was Galactimon. So That's kind of cool. I wonder, does TB really have that bad of a matchup into Galacti? I think it might, just because they can't get rid of the Galacti, right?
I'll have to double check because I don't actually play TB myself. There are outs to Galacti, but it is rough because it is a complete immunity Digimon. You're gonna have to like attack over it or use some lingering DP minus. Because I remember playing into it with VB the other day and was able to out it using Omnimon since it has the lingering DP minus effect on it. But even like being able to battle the Galacti isn't always the answer because they can either attacking into it means they can just end the attack, but battling it usually means they have to trigger their protection. Oh no, if they have the immunity, that means they always have the protection. Um,
I guess
they have
like
execute via Susano, which would help them a bit there.
yeah, and I guess like they could try to stun it with Ryugu so that way it can't attack to trigger Ragnarok Cannon. And TB also could just like flood the field enough to where Ragnarok Cannon would reasonably never actually burn security. So I don't actually
Stuns
know.
don't really work against Galacti because you can just evolve. You can like go into the Galact, and you can go like end of opponent's turn, go into the Galacti that plays the Rad Cannon for free. Then back on your own turn, evolve with the reduced cost back into the immunity Galacti to basically make the stun fall off.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think that would be a very interesting toss-up type matchup. They do have D-Digivolve, so Kaguya can't exactly work the best. Same thing with like Amaterasu. Is Amaterasu sticky? No, Amaterasu is not the lingering DP minus. And it's only one color for that deck for the most part, so like your DP minus isn't going to be huge. Yeah, I
Yeah, so it looks like you Galacti should probably be advantageous because like at most you have Susano to try to execute into it, or just use execute in general to go into it, but then Galacti usually has the inherit to just end attacks, so they aren't dying to that. So
Yeah, no, I think Galacti might actually be favored into TB. It's funny because Galacti was already pretty decent last format as like a good
mhm.
anti-meta deck, and maybe it's like better because a lot of people are right now exploring and experimenting with TB, and for good reason. I'll get into that in just a moment. Considering second, third, fourth, and fifth place were all the TB decks, then seventh was Glowing Dawn and eighth was Angels. I don't think anyone was doing any interesting tech. Oh, actually, I lied. Glowing Dawn was actually using Paladin mode.
Of
Paladin mode Ace more specifically.
course, two of
Uh,
them even.
yeah, it. I don't hate it. I really don't because Atratus just sits on the field and is just like an absolute menace. And then coming back to your turn, there's a high chance that he would live, or he would have the protections lingering through the opponent's turn because of just how he works. So, like,
Mhm.
it opens up for a level 7 ace to be really, really good. So I could see it. And then like hosing on TB because it just like throws all of their trash away is really strong. It also hoses a little bit on Beelstar, but ideally Beelstar would have already deleted the Atratus before even making a swing.
Yeah, I
So
mean you can just slam it or just evolve it or evo it if you really need to. In general, I so far like more and more anti graveyard is becoming like a stronger and stronger effect in
yeah,
the with the current state of the game.
yeah, because that's kind of like TB at least has Amaterasu to do anti graveyard stuff, which is like already really, really strong. Um, so maybe Medusamon can stay just barely viable for a little bit longer because of that. Actually, funny enough, when I was testing out Medusamon into TB, it was not a good matchup by any stretch of the word, and I was only winning because TB hit Crimson Blaze. Like I was just a madman, and I was just like, what happens if I just like up Crimson Blaze to 3 or 4 copies in this deck just to try to seed insecurity more often, and then they would hit it in security, and I would win the game on the spot. And I'm just like, yes, that is exactly what happens. And then when I didn't see Crimson Blaze, I lost, and I'm just like, what did I expect?
Still a crazy card.
It really is. I mean, if you think about it, it is just that good because for
Mhm.
an option to be able to reduce itself, it's like that's already insane. And things can be played out very easily at this point in time. So it's just like, oh, they stopping that and floodgating it is like really, really powerful. The only issue with the card is you have to be like hyper predictive in order to use it effectively. Either that or like it needs to come out of security. Like there is no in between. It's like you either have to predict what they're going to do when they're going to do it and hope that that was going to mess them up enough, or it comes out of security and that really should shut down the opponent.
Yeah, I mean the hyper predictive part is just comes down to like matchup experience. Though it is always a gamble because it's sometimes like unnecessary if your opponent didn't even have like a play regardless. But regardless, it like in Medusa, that card is crazy because you're using it not just for the actual like stopping playing by effects part, but like because it also is just like a finisher, since it you just set up a bunch of tokens and then pops them all.
I've definitely done that once or twice before, so I can't confirm that that is still a very good play. Um, it's just yeah, like I think a lot of people for this weekend between the two events were kind of like anticipating TB, it feels like. Um, because now we could kind of get into the core data for a little bit. Which shout outs to Risu, another content creator. Risu the Squirrel. He already covered his breakdown over on his YouTube channel. So if you want to see that breakdown, by all means do so. Not to try to shout out a whole bunch of content creators this episode. I guess that's the running theme.
Might be,
Um,
yeah.
but the top 16 was what, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 different decks, which is like pretty decent. Granted, TB was
It's
still,
pretty spread.
yeah, TB
Might
was
be one of the
still the
most
spread.
spread out tournaments I've seen in a while, right? Not no deck having more than three representatives.
Yeah. I mean, granted, a lot of these decks are repeat decks, yes. But we do have some like newcomers, and oddly enough, a deck that people seem to have forgotten existed for a hot second, but is still really, really good. So as far as the top 16 archetype breakdown, we had three TB decks, two Jupiters, two Volcanus, two Time Stranger Angels, two Three Musketeers, one DNA Alter S, one Galactimon, one Glowing Dawn, one Puppets, and one Metal Empire. So the deck that won it was DNA Alter S, uh, for very obvious reasons, because you could basically ignore the entire game if you're playing that deck correctly. But it is a little bit of a high rolly situation. But I mean, ignoring the entire game is pretty good of a trade off. I'd have to say.
Yeah. I'm
With
looking at the list though. It's got some interesting new cards in it. They did swap like two Alter S for the new Omnimon for the new VB Omnimon instead, which I think makes sense. I think he's a good way to like end the game, right? Because of the security being an odd number would mean you have like sometimes awkward scenarios when you're trying to go for the OTK because you Alter S will gain Sec Plus from Greymon, Blitz Greymon, so it'll go like for two checks, split up, reform, two checks, and then they have like one security left. That's where the new Omnimon seems to be like the more optimal finisher since he'll just trash that last security rather than having you to make two more Omnimons to end the game.
Yeah, and they're also running the Metal Empire Metal Garurumon because
Mhm.
most likely because of assembly. Like it just works because you're still playing all of the Garurumon cards. Plus it could evo
That's
naturally
a
on
crazy
top of
card.
everything. And you have the potential to DNA into him if you really wanted to. Or no, uh you need purple. The deck's lacking purple. Never mind. I take the DNA
Yeah.
portion
Well,
back.
I mean, I think probably maybe the main reason you can run Metal Gurumon is because it's a crazy card in general, right?
Yeah.
The one weakness I've seen with it when I've been playing it is that it's really nice for it to be having the opponent's turn stun effect, right? Your opponent, if they ever play a Digivolve, you can just stun them. But since maybe I can get into this more later. I've been playing VB lately, this past like weeks. Um, and Metal Garuru is a crazy card, but a lot of decks that can very easily play around it and its protection effects with the Digivolve, which VB doesn't have like a way to protect itself from. But since you have effect immunity with Blitz Greymon, that's like a way to ensure that they can't play around your Metal Garu with it. So you're guaranteed to be able to shut down their game plan with a Metal Garu stun.
Yeah. And the decode is also really, really good just because keeping a body on the field is insane. Plus, it could also like trigger some of your ping pongs in a sense. Uh, it could trigger your level 4 ping pongs. It can't trigger your level 5 ping pongs unless it's during your turn. Then it could. Um, but the deck's not trying to swarm with a whole bunch of level 3s and 4s anyway. But they're running a ton of consistency with the Granite Memory Boost and Midnight Memory Boost, plus the analog. So they're just like
Usual.
pure consistency. And they even teched in a Gabu X just for even more consistency.
Now I think the Gabu X is just there, might be there for the VB Omnimon. Because if you ping pong, I believe you'll be like one card short of actually having 10 sources unless you use the Gabu X. Because you'll have like two at level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then if you slam another 3, that's a 3, 4, 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So you'll be like at 9 sources unless you add the Gabu X.
Okay. So that would allow you to trigger it twice, which is incredibly strong. Um, so I guess that makes sense.
That might
And
be why it's there. It could also just be there for the consistency too.
yeah, because like
But that's something I was
it's
thinking about.
yeah, it just seems like it's a really good card. It also works with if you just like digivolve into Metal Gar, right? Oh no, this one doesn't need if you have two of the same level.
Oh yeah,
But it
because it just
does.
it's just a lot of stuff on the track. Yeah, you can get protection from battle on your Guru stack or even on your Omni stack if that is at all relevant.
Yeah. But for at least Garurumon, like the idea I can see is like just an extra source just to make his removal potentially stronger in case like he couldn't remove like two big bodies on the field in a sense. So that way he could like remove all the sources from one and then bottom deck the other so one has like next to no inheritables.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Lots of good applications. I don't think it's a bad card. Very interesting deck, but yeah, it's just trying to do crisscross applesauce and DNA shenanigans, get up into a blitz, grit up into a crest, and hope the opponent basically can't play out of that with your Omnimons to back them up. Yeah, because you could just normal DNA. You don't have to use the blitz or the crest effect to DNA into Alter S, and you could save the Alter S for defensive situations.
Yeah, or the Omni one for defensive situations too.
Yeah.
Deletes any DP minuses.
Yeah. I was I was told to test Omnimon in like a Nokia Omni build. So maybe I do have to like reevaluate the Omnimon a little bit more.
Maybe it's a good finisher, but like for like a yeah, I guess it is like okay as like your like immediate DNA because like if you have enough sources, having a recovery too does stall out the game quite a bit.
Yeah, because at least like the idea for Nokia Omnimon is like even though you won't get the when digivolving when attacking twice, you still would at least be able to get it once, assuming you have your egg. Because it's like egg, two threes, two sixes, and then Omnimon.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's still possible and relatively easy. I just don't know like how many I would need and all that stuff. That needs to be tested. But good card. Good card in a good deck. Was there any other standout decks that you wanted to talk about? Um,
Metal Empire because it's like the one from top 16 in in core.
Okay.
I'm surprised this topped personally. I mean, not that surprised, but like this is a deck that I always figure to be decent, but like not exactly regional winning deck level. Um, and more, I keep hearing people who are just like afraid of this matchup in particular, because if they get everything set up right, if they ever get Metal Garu on board with the Machine Dramon Ace effect is on as well, it's like for most decks, there's like nothing you can do, right? If you try to remove anything, they go into Chaos Shaman. You can't short strip them. You can't Digivolve them. You have to deal with the Metal Garu stunning you if you ever like breathe. Um, but IMO, it the deck doesn't have a lot of ways to like cheat evolutions outside of like DNAing. Um, so getting set up for that kind of board takes a lot of setup. So what takes a while to get to.
Yeah, that's probably why they're playing like treadmill training, is to try to
Yeah,
have that cheese of evolution. Because I was talking about this with like
that's setup.
some of my people on Discord, and other people I talk to. And one of the big things that I kind of came to the conclusion of, as far as like what is propelling Time Strangers, is the fact that like they kind of reduce the amount of options that other decks need in order to function. So, like, take Medusamon as an example. You need to have that training card set up to be able to get your free evolution into year 4 to then Digivolve into year 5 for essentially a net 1. Where Time Strangers, they just do that with a level 3 built in. So even though they don't have a dedicated training card, because they could still technically run the 2-color trainings if they really wanted to. But even though they don't have a dedicated training card, they don't need it because it's already built into their Digimon. And that's kind of like part of the idea of what pushed option removal out of the game entirely, and why dual cards kind of came in and existed, is because, okay, we still need option removal to matter, but we understand from a deck building perspective, there's literally no way that you could actually feasibly run it. So we're just going to start slapping it onto Digimon now, not necessarily as a form of power creep, but as a way to potentially solve the issue that they're currently seeing, which I do think Bandai is really good at, or like the current design team. They've always felt really good at figuring out what is the current systemic issue with the game and how to potentially fix that. Um, Granted, some of the issues they created themselves, but that's neither here nor
Yeah.
there. Um, So yeah, it looks like they're just using treadmill training to speed up that, and treadmill training makes the most sense considering there's a lot of black and yellow with a little bit of red and blue, or red and purple, I guess.
Yeah. So unfortunately, he doesn't pick up Metal Garurumon, which is the sixth they're playing the four of, because we mentioned earlier it's a crazy card. Um, Probably one of the reasons why I overvalued VB is because the VB goes into Metal Garu so efficiently. But like I said, it's super outable if you don't have like EDG protection. It just feels really good to go into Metal Garu against TB, because they're a deck that wants to evolve up and then swing with execute to trigger their effects. And Metal Garu just says no to them. You just go, you evolved, get stunned.
Yeah, and Metal Garu also has like evade built in, so it could at least like not die to a single form of removal. It'll take 2 removals, and then again, like you said, if it's backed up by the Machine Dramon Ace, then literally they are forced to remove it. Um, which could be difficult because now they also have to deal with the Machine Dramon Ace. Is this literally what aces need to be at this point in order to be playable? Like, just have some of the most absurd protection abilities like baked into them?
I mean, on a base level, they probably should, just because of the fact that overflow is just that big of a downside.
Yeah, that's kind of like what kept them fair and balanced, and like the big reason why a lot of decks like started not using aces is literally because their overflow was too big of a downside, and removal on Digimon was way super hyper prevalent. Like everything removed stuff, it felt like. So it just didn't make sense for um aces to be played, because what, you're just giving them a free evolution for digivolving into what they were going to do anyway. I think like maybe they took the idea from uh Black War Greymon Ace and we're just like, okay, this was like the only ace that people were even considering playing because it had that built-in protection. It was hyper specific, but like it wasn't super hard to not out. But I guess like again, because the changes to green, having Force Fight, it now gives them more opportunity to be able to out a card like Black War Greymon Ace, which is why it probably just never saw any like real play. But Machine Dramon, just that card's so nasty.
Yeah. But I wonder if maybe it would have been better if it wasn't not an ace, right?
Uh
Like, how often are you gonna even actually just using the ace? Like, to even really, most people will probably just play around it. Um, so like, unless you're using Metal Greymon effect to taunt something into actually triggering the ace, you're probably only caring about it being an ace for the lower play cost, I guess. Either way, like,
I think that's kind of where they're
it's
trying to use the egg, maybe. Like, set up 2 level 5s on the field, and then just be like, look, you're either going to get aced, or you're going to trigger my DNA, and I'm going to go into Metal Garu. Like, maybe that's kind of the angle that they're trying to spin.
Well, here's the problem there being is that Digivolve is so prevalent, so which makes the egg, and we're getting even more source strip than before. And that's the thing is that the Machine Drum Ace is what deals with the Digivolve and source strip.
Now, that's, yeah, that, I guess that's fair. Maybe it's just a hard play.
Yeah,
Like, just, I'm gonna windmill slam. Like, I could get up into a Metal Guru and then windmill slam Machine Dramon and then just, like, literally let Machine Dramon slowly build himself and just be like, look, you can't really do anything here.
yeah. But still, if they give him assembly instead, like they did with Metal Garu, instead of being an ace, I think the card would just be better.
No, 100%. I think they just slapped up the ace tag as, like, kind of some form of balancing act. But it really feels
Yeah,
like, at least from my experience with Metal Empire, it is, we're gonna play one game. Like, this is gonna be a grind, a stall. We're just gonna play one game and see who's actually gonna come out on top. I don't know if you ever got that vibe with how defensive and slow it kind of can move.
yeah. I've gotten games like that when practicing against Metal Empire.
Yeah, which
And those
doesn't.
are those style of games I quite dislike personally. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm not really enjoying Metal Empire and are kind of biased against it.
No, I don't like those grind fests either. Like my ideal gameplay is like not a grind fest, but not something that's like hyper over in a single turn or two, or I guess like turn 2 or turn 3, something with a little bit more back and forth and like actual gameplay to it. Um but that's just me personally. Some people like the blowouts. They're
Mhm.
just like, yep, just let me blow you out and we'll call it here. Obviously, DNA LTRS kind of just does that and it shows that it's still really viable. Um,
Mhm.
I guess like the other deck that kind of does something similar to that is Puppets, because it is Puppets OTK. If you're playing the Niaro Egg in Puppets, it is 100% Puppet OTK. Can't fool
Yep.
me with splashing in Junomon. But I think like Junomon is literally a card just to try to burn the security, right?
It probably is just there for that. Yeah.
Yeah, so place one other Digimon as the top card of security, and then trash both players' security. So you could target one of your like Digimon that you played out for free, recover one, and then burn both players, and then figure out a way. Yeah, it's just the in color version of Ragnarlordmon Ace or what's its face High Andromon Ace as well. It's just not an ace, but it does something similar.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Gets you the one damage you'll be sort of like needing to get that you from being a kill from to make it so you can kill from four.
yes. And they're also running treadmill training, they're running physical training, so it goes to show that they kind of just have to. Plus, they're really good consistency tools. And this deck is not really running a whole lot of Nyaromons. Instead, they're actually electing to use a Shine Greymon Ruin mode because if you can't kill the opponent, why not just Ruin mode and basically tell them they can't play the game anyway for a lot of decks? So makes
It's
sense
probably the
there.
better 7 in general. Nyabu feels like he doesn't really do that much in my experience.
He's just good for the extra swarm. That's kind of it. Yeah, he's not very like great. So I do kind of agree with the decision to split it to where it's like it's a Shine Greymon Ruin mode. Um and they're also running the CL Awakening as an interesting tech card, just because it can stop the opponent from attacking with one of their Digimon, so that's pretty good. It could go on top of a Sistermon CL, so it makes your CLs a little bit more usable, which is also good. And then it also goes into your security, which is one of the big things that kind of just made like puppets in general feel kind of really weird, is because like you are just full blown glass cannon. If you don't kill them, you burnt through a good portion of your security, so this is just an extra buffer for their security. So seems reasonable.
Yeah, I've been seeing CL Awaken quite a few times in puppet lists. It's just an overall really crazy good card, especially because CL gets played for free.
Yeah.
So, which means you essentially play CL Awaken for free, which is just more free value when you play your CL to get the one memory. You get a stun on top of that plus a heal.
Yeah, it's a really good card. Interesting that they're not trying to play any of the TB puppets. Do any of the TB puppets like? I don't even think this deck needs any of the TB puppets, which is why it's not playing any of them.
I feel like you wouldn't in a Liberator puppets deck. For one, they aren't Liberators, so you're gonna lose out on that synergy. Um, I don't even think those do any of them even.
There's a couple of cards that search out puppets or liberators. So,
I know that.
yeah. I don't know how much the liberator synergy like particularly matters. It's just effect wise, I just think like these are very clearly
Yeah, for
not
one,
designed for puppets.
Narrative Rond only allows you to, if you use the delay effect, only evolves into a Liberator trait, so you won't be able to use them with that. I also just don't think any of their effects are particularly worth it over the puppets already running. Like,
There's
you're
an
obviously going to run.
I would say there's
I
an
mean,
argument for the Karakuru over the what EX11 Karakuru. That's about the only argument I can make, just because of the assembly.
oh, right, you can assembly. I know with the way that puppets play, I feel like you're not going to use the assembly, right?
Probably not, which is why it doesn't matter. I mean, there's some interesting things that you could do because you could be like assembly and then maybe try to, if you have enough memory, digivolve into a Kaguya. I don't know. I think maybe the color cohesion is like arguably the more important thing because
Yeah,
the EX11 is part yellow and the EX12 is not.
I don't know if this is relevant or not, but TB card crew specifically can't evolve over CL.
Oh, well, EX11 can't digivolve over CL either.
Yes, it can. Oh no, yeah, it can't. Yeah, you're right. Right. It says purple, yellow, or yellow. That's
Yeah.
funny. Purple, yellow versus non-white.
I
Yeah,
guess
that's
they
probably
learned
not
their
a factor then.
Yeah, I guess they learned their lesson from the first one.
Yeah, no, it's probably looking at their list, it's 3 physical training plus 2 treadmill. You probably don't want running a level 5 that can't get hit by any of that.
Yeah. I think it is just for color cohesion. But
On
yeah,
top of that, like I don't know what exactly you're even running the new Karakura for anyway. The on deletion is okay, but like sure it stuns, but I don't know if you'd rather have the stun over running Karakura getting you extra swarming for yourself anyway.
yeah, swarm and
Um,
protection.
Not to mention if you want that stun effect, the CL Awakened does exactly that for you anyway. So Karakura feels a little redundant there. You're not really like a stun slash control deck regardless. You're running Nyaro, you're trying to OTK, and Karakuru you know, TB Karakura doesn't really uh, help in that department.
No, not really. I'm trying to look at like if there's anything like interesting as far as the other decks. They just all seem relatively standard, exactly what we've been seeing. No spicy tech or inclusions to try to counteract anything that was thrusted into the meta with EX12. And I guess like we could kind of talk a little bit about TB now as like the big outlier, because between both of these events, TB had the best showing, and for very good reason. So when I was doing my testing stream on TB, because one of my chatters was just like, "Hey, you should really try TB." I'm just like, I don't know if I'd like it. And then I still don't know if I like it, even after playing like almost 6 hours of the deck. And it's not for the reason that people would think. I might not like it because it just feels like it's the game on easy mode. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, so every time I played it, and I literally said I'm playing this like a goon, and I'm still winning because all I have to do is hard slam Susanomon, and it invalidates the vast majority of what my opponent has done, and it literally turns off their recovery play lines, to an extent, in terms of like, oh, my Digimon's gonna decode, spit out another Digimon, and do something else, and I could get like I'm left with something. No, he turns literally all of that off. Um, so it literally did feel like I didn't have to put that much effort, one, into the build, because as of right now, it does basically build itself. You just play every TB card, and then Susanomon, and maybe Analog if you're feeling spicy, and then that's it. Um, so the builds didn't feel very different from another, and even looking at all of these different builds from these events, they don't really seem that different. It's just like obviously Kaguya, Amaterasu, your main level sixes, and then maybe you're running the blue one. Um, and yeah, it just gives you a breadth of answers to pretty much handle anything the opponent could potentially throw at you. Just because that's what these toolbox decks are designed to do, is like, yeah, we just literally can do everything because we are everything. Um, and yeah, it literally just felt like the game was on easy mode. Like, I didn't even have to play well to be able to do well. So I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking, God, if I'm already this bad at the deck, what happens if I put this deck in the hands of a good player? It's just like, oh, yeah, no wonder why it's going to do well.
I don't know if much would change if you put it in the hands of a good player. It's the kind of thing that turned me away from the deck as well, because I know I've had a couple of people saying that like to also try it because they think I'd like it, but like I don't know. I think it's too simple. The play lines are just so straightforward. You climb into you evolve into your six, you do your execute play, and on whatever board, and then eventually you just spam Susano until you win. I agree. I don't know if it's easy mode. It's just like so straightforward. I guess easy mode is one way to put it, but like yeah, it's such a it just feels like such a linear deck. You have like one line, right? You just climb up into your six, do your execute play, and then set up trash for Susano. I don't know what else to say. Like maybe you can try to decide between using Amaterasu to do the damage and set up and undo their trash versus ending on Kaguya to put up a bunch of retail blockers. But it kind of just comes down to which one you see versus and what your opponent is doing. But like I don't know, the deck is just so. I don't know. I need a bit more. I need a bit more sequencing in my decks. That's kind of why I like prefer playing decks like BL Starmon, right?
Like, and I'm all for simple decks. Like, I'm sitting here generally playing like Red Aggro or way back when Rookie Rush. Like, I'm all for simple decks, but like even this kind of caught me off guard with like how easy it was, which is like good because This was one of the topics that I talked about with Mario, where it's just like accessibility of getting into the game in terms of gameplay itself. So it's just like
Mhm.
the idea of Glowing Dawn, even though that deck has like some really hard sequencing, is it is the cheapest way to enter the meta and have something for your average Joe who's brand new to Digimon come into the game, pick up, and just hit the ground running if they really learned a hot second on how their deck works. This kind of feels like the inverse, where it's like if you put enough money into building the deck, you don't really have to learn that much about it in order to have like the easiest time of your life against the wide variety of like the not meta decks in a sense. Just because, like you said, it is just get up into a 6, do your thing, then start hard playing Susano turn after turn, and then just watch as the opponent crumbles. Which makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of unfortunate to think about it too, because it feels like the kind of this feels like the kind of deck that would be built for new players, right? Considering how straightforward it is and how you can just sort of build the whole thing just with, boxes of EX12, and they'll have to like outside of getting analog youths, which have been reprinted constantly. There's no like older cards you have to like get together to put this deck together. It's almost entirely EX12 cards. Um, but for some reason, EX cards, whenever they're good, they end up being really expensive, especially secret rares. So maybe if they made Susano an ultimate rare, maybe this could have been like the beginner deck, right?
Right. And I think maybe it would have been better as that, but Bandai likes
Mm.
money. No surprise that Bandai's like kind of just in full greed mode, and this was just a very easy W for Bandai. Which kind of sucks because I would like this deck to be more accessible, but you're looking to play this deck anywhere between $200 to $300, depending on where you're able to get your cards and when you're able to get some of your cards. Um, but yeah, because it is just super straightforward. And the scary thing is, we already know that it's technically going to be getting another secret rare in the next set. I have no idea how much more
Yeah.
powerful the deck is going to get because of that one singular card, but if it's anything on Homeros's level, oh man, some crazy stuff can happen. And by crazy, I mean it's just like even more powerful. Like it basically would just replace the analog youth. But some decks aren't even running analog youth. Like they'll just run the full package just because. Some people are splashing in like the one-off support cards, like a one-off Louis or a one-off Crimson Blaze. So the deck is still relatively straightforward to build and straightforward to play. There's even an Akiho just for like more rush. Somebody told me, oh, because you're just hard playing Susanomon turn after turn, why don't you just include a Dan and Cannon? And I was just like, yeah, Dan and Cannon's cute and all because it's Time Stranger traded, but like that's what Oni Beamo.
Unnecessary, right?
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
necessary because
yeah.
that's what
You
the egg
already
is
can
for.
attack in return.
But they were like,
And you'd rather just have it delete itself at the end of the attack anyway, because it's not like you get any value from Susano sticking around.
right, and Amaterasu could grab back the Susano too, which is the crazy thing.
Mhm.
But they were saying like in the off situations where it's just like, okay, you don't have your egg for whatever reason in your trash, and you still need to make the hard play Susano turn. Like, sure, you could do that. Do I think it's necessary? No. Is it something you could do? Yes. They were also saying like, oh, the inverse could kind of be true, like for Time Stranger decks, where you could just like hard slam Susano if you just have enough memory to like end the game.
16. Nah, that's not happening. I've seen arguments for running Susano in Time Stranger for like just evolving into it and then being able to like swing and potentially, trash security recover and
Yeah.
make that a lethal line.
Yeah.
Which I can see, right? I think that's like a valid reason to be running Suzanne in a Time Stranger deck. But I get that you can generate a lot of memory with all is when you get set up like a billion tamers, and if your opponent is playing around um your Inori slash Asuna slash Shiroko's, you might be being put to six memory, and then you can slam Susano.
right, and then you also have your like built-in memory boost. Like so, like it does have TS
It doesn't
plays
seem like
and
it's.
yeah, it does have
I
TS
don't think they're ever going to be
plays.
slamming it
Yeah,
because like you only get to trash their security essentially if they have like no Digimon for him to you know stack on the security with one attacking effect. And if you're sniping him with no sources, he doesn't DP minus at all.
yeah, I think maybe you're right. He is just better for the Evo, rather than for like just a hard play win button, like Omni for game type thing. But that's partially why like the card is like really expensive, is because like he's a very rare card, being the highest base rarity in the booster box, on top of the fact that he has multiple different applications, and the main deck that is playing him is doing well, and they need bare minimum 2 to 3 copies of him in order for the deck to truly function. Like, I've won games without Susano
Mhm.
because the TB cards are just that extra strong. For whatever reason, I feel like they just like dramatically overtuned it, especially compared to the rest of EX12. Because like looking at these two
Yeah.
events, literally outside of Machine Dramon, nothing else from EX12 is doing anything. Literally nothing.
I feel like that's partly also contributing to the cost of Susano. Like it's a supply versus demand issue. It's like EX sets have an issue with like getting undersold in the first place. Um, and it doesn't help that there's like only TB being like the one archetype you're even looking to. If you go looking for something actually competitive, it's the only thing you're actually looking to get. And with a smaller set size, you know, if you're trying to get more boxes to get more chances to pull the high rarity cards, you end up with even more useless bulk because of the fact that the smaller set size means you get a lot more repeats of the bulk. So it kind of disincentivizes getting, more than like maybe 2 or 3 boxes because you just end up with any more than that is just more bulk, which means it's way better to just instead get singles, which disincentivizes getting people getting more boxes, which means boxes sell less, which means these singles go up in price even more.
Yeah, you're not entirely wrong there, and it's kind of just been that way for the majority of EX sets histories.
Yeah.
And it gets like exacerbated when EX sets actually have a good deck in it, because spoiler, not all EX sets have good decks in them. You look at like, oh, what really came out of a lot of these EX sets, and maybe one deck per EX set is like actually truly competitive, if they're even lucky at that. We've had EX sets where they had no competitive decks and the set was completely worthless, but we were just that starved for something different. Because usually EX sets come after like not super savory metas in a sense. That we just really want something different, something new to like freshen up the experience and change some matchups. So like, to kind of put a bow on the competitive side of things, it really feels like we're kind of just like developing this new rock, paper, scissors, where it's just like you have the decks with high protections and high immunities that get beat out by the decks that are using dual cards or option based removal. And then you have those decks, because they don't have the high immunities, they could just easily get beaten by decks like TB, where they just like can do something egregiously stupid, hard slam mega level Digimon turn after turn, wipe the board every single opportunity they can, and then just win the game pretty easily without any real fear of consequence. Um, but those decks lose to the decks with high protections, which is probably where Machine Dramon came in, because like, oh, if you can't DP minus me enough, or if you just can't remove my body, then it just makes it super difficult to deal with. So it feels like we're just in this like little triangle of rock paper scissors. Just, I don't know how this triangle is gonna exactly play out. Because right now it just feels like a lot of people are teching towards TB, but how good or bad is the TB matchup versus something like Beelstar? I don't actually know.
I wish I knew too, because I probably should know, but unfortunately, I've been taking a break from the game for the past week. And when I was playing, I was trying to play VB. Um, and the conclusion of me playing VB this whole time is that VB is bad. I wish I wasn't like hyping the deck up as much up prior to the set release, because now that I've gotten a chance to like play it during the meta, it feels so mid, and it's so disappointing too. Because there's a lot that I was genuinely looking forward to with VB, and now it just the deck just isn't there. The deck just isn't consistent enough, and the payoffs aren't strong enough because it really does just kind of lack the protection it needs to accomplish what it even kind of sets out to do. And that's like a really interesting dynamic when you compare it to Metal Empire, because both decks would like to abuse Metal Garurumon, right? Because he's this awesome like removal plus stuns if the opponent does anything card. And Metal Empire can give protection to the Metal Garurumon via like the protection that it needs, because you can use Machine Drum on Ace to make it immune to Digivolve, so you can actually threaten the evade, threaten the decode effects. But Metal Empire lacks ways to like cheat evos. Meanwhile, VB can cheat evos pretty well, but it lacks protections, right? So it makes Metal Garurumon super efficiently, but that Metal Garurumon is like the easiest thing to dismantle in the world if you're playing against anything that has even a sliver of Digivolve effects.
Which D-Digivolve is still very good, and a lot of the good decks are D-Digivolving, especially now
Yep.
that like colors are mattering less and less. Like everything just has access to D-Digivolve if it just literally has any part black in it. So yeah, I totally feel that, because one of the big things, like I was playing when I was playing TB, I was playing a lot of the family decks, like against a lot of the family decks, and man, almost all of the family decks feel so bad. It's like kind of just laughable. Like people were really hyping up Nightmare Soldiers, like as an example, because like, oh, they have all of this DNA that can happen on the opponent's turn, similar to Metal Empire. And then you look and stop and read the cards, and it's just like none of these do anything. So like I'm
Yeah.
not actually afraid of you doing things on my turn because your cards are so bad that it just doesn't functionally matter. Like it could chump a lot of like decks that don't exactly know how to play around some of them, but like it's not super complicated to. And like a lot of the older family decks, more specifically, don't actually have built-in win cons. So it's just like, okay, build all the way up to a Bolt Boutmon, and then what? You
Mhm.
haven't checked a single
Yeah.
security, and even if Bolt Boutmon starts chipping at security, that's what, 2 damage versus a bear, like a bearmon play, where it's just like, okay, I do my thing, and then now you're at 3 security with this hyper powerful Digimon sitting on the field threatening you at every stage.
It doesn't
So
help that Bolt Button doesn't really do anything during the opponent's turn either.
right.
He could have been a good finisher if the deck was able to be aggressive enough, because he does trash security, and you have like unsuspend inherits in that deck, but like it's not a you're not the deck is not going to get there fast enough.
Yeah, because I saw like a lot of people testing out Nature Spirits and Deep Savers using their new cards, and it really didn't feel like they were improving the deck's weaknesses or deficiencies at all. And I even saw like in Hoodie, people were playing the um, Nature Spirits package where you could DNA into Angelwamon, and then you have access at Dire Rabbitmon, the dual card, and that really didn't seem like it was doing anything. So I'm just like, okay, these are just a bunch of cards that literally don't do anything. That's kind of disappointing. It's cute of an idea, but kind of disappointing in actual practice and execution.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking about practice execution, we got some more spoilers from BT26. I guess my big question, because I think I asked my Discord this is now that we have the Cerberus Mon finally revealed, do you think Cerberus X was banned because of that card? I'm
I
hard pressed to think he's not, and they just did it because
no.
they wanted us to move on.
Yeah, I think there's like a bunch of other like super valid reasons for Cerbex to be gone. Mostly because of the fact that it was being used like way longer than his like expected lifetime. But like, okay, cool. You can like evolve Cerb into Cerbex to I don't know, enable him having the on deletion Cerb that Cerb has for 0, but like it's kind of a whatever on deletion or anything like that. And it would be nice to have Cerbex to give you extra like damage potential in like Titans, because I feel like that's like one thing that that deck would kind of need. Like, not that they don't do damage; they do plenty of damage, but they need to find more efficient lethal lines. I feel like when actually saw people play Titans, like in BT24, one of the better builds I've saw was the ones trying to run the Dark Animal package, because you can go Titus swing, 2 checks on suspend swing. Um, but yeah, no, it doesn't seem like it would be. There's no like crazy synergies here, I would say.
I think like the best one is kind of exactly what you were saying, where it's just like, yeah, you would use Cerberus Mon to play out the new field option that they just got to create an extra body to then sacrifice to the Cerb X if you're able to keep turn digivolving. I think Doberman there is a little bit more of a reason, just because like the Doberman
Yeah.
inheritable basically just lets you digivolve into the SERP for arguably less. So it just enables easier and cheaper evolutionary lines. But I think it just goes to show that, like, yeah, it's more specifically the X cards were just like overly cracked rather than these new cards like demanding that they get hit. Because, like, I do see a world where we still would play those cards, and it probably would change in Warp Titans around the Cerberus package more specifically, which is exactly what Bandai doesn't want.
Mhm.
Because we did get a new Cerberus Werewolf mode, which is the ideal way that Bandai wants you to play the new Cerberus, is to use Inferno Dive Inferno Divide as the option to be able to get that free, or not really free, that one cost Evo that it could just do normally. But now you have an option ability that, lo and behold, de-digivolves.
Nice. I felt like Titans probably needed easier access to Digivolve, because at the moment they just have Sharkmon.
Yeah, so now you don't have to run Sharkmon, you could just run the Cerberusmon stuff, so and that's pretty cool. Because the other cool thing about this werewolf mode is the fact that it is a dual card that is a rare. So
Yeah.
they can print low rarity dual cards. It is possible. And the rest of the werewolf mode isn't like bad either. Obviously, the option being mono black doesn't mean anything for Titans, because you could just ignore the color requirement, because that's exactly what Titans is designed to do. But discounting a card enables a lot of your abilities, and then you get D-Digivolve 3, then the Arts Digivolve. He comes with like jamming, reboot, blocker, and an on delete ability built in to then play a level 4 Titan from your trash. So it just seems like a very reasonable card for what Titans wants to do, especially now that we know that Plutomon just wants to basically be like Anubismon 2.0.
Maybe. That's the thing, is I don't know how to feel about Plutomon right now. Maybe this is definitely one of those archetypes where I have to like see it in action before. Oh, for one, we're missing Zombie Pluto, so we don't really still know what the deck is fully capable of. But I just still don't know if I'm vibing with it yet, which is kind of sad, because Pluto has been like one of the things I've been looking forward to the most. Um, like, I wouldn't really call this Anubis 2.0. I can see how his effects read that way, because trash a card, play a Kai with a cost reduced, and then he has the effect to delete when you do so. It's limited to specifically Titans, so it's not. Anubis was good because you get to play anything off of it, right? Death
Right.
X, Mervamon specifically,
Yeah.
right? Um, and maybe I could be wrong about this because I remember I specifically am reminding myself that I didn't think Anubis was going to be that good when it was first revealed either, right? But like when I look at Plutomon, I'm thinking, okay, you go into this, you spit out, I don't know, Cerberus, or I'm assuming the ideal might be either one of the other sixes, Grand Koaga or Tyrant Kabuteri, are targets for Plutomon that you can play for free. Um, but then it's like, and then what, right?
That was
It's like,
my first impression when I read the card. I was just like, this reads like a Nubismon, which is kind of scary. But I also was just like, how is this? How are you winning? Like, what are you doing
yeah,
afterward?
yeah, exactly. What are we winning, right? Because it's like, cool, you can drop Tyrant Kabuteri. Tyrant Kabuteri does give you protection from options when Digimon based removal is everywhere. Not that option based protection isn't great, um, especially since dual cards are super prevalent now or getting more prevalent. But it's like it still feels like incomplete, right? It's like what is this doing during your opponent's turn if you just have like a Pluto and a Tyrant sitting there and are easily just deleted or removed in general. I guess if you delete them, you can hit trigger Serb Inherit to delete lowest DP if they themselves aren't protected against that, or lowest level, I mean. Um, I don't know, this doesn't seem good enough right now. So unless maybe Zombie Pluto is like the Dexter Ruga equivalent, if they remove Pluto, they can go into Zombie and then that does something.
Oh,
If
like
that's the
a
case,
trash
then
ability?
yeah. Basically Dexter Ruga, but for Pluto, right?
Yeah.
If that's the case, then maybe we have something going here. But outside of that, I'm seeing you doing like minimal damage and then putting up a very easily to outboard that has like maybe an annoying effect from Serb Inherit if you try to remove it, which you can play around if you have non-deletion based removal,
Right.
right?
No, I totally feel you because it does feel like based on what we have, and this is why I don't generally like making decks before we know the full information, is for this specific reason, because it's just like, okay,
Hmm.
uh I need to know the full scope on what is this card actually supposed to be used for. Like obviously we have
Hmm.
enough pieces which Bandai spoiled in a very particular way to get us excited for it, but obviously without zombie it we don't know exactly the true full extent of what Pluto is supposed to do and what Bandai wants us to do with it. Because right now a lot of people are just like defaulting to, oh, we are just going to use him like Anubismon to be able to play out Titamon or Titamon Skullbaluki. And I'm just like, yeah, but in Titamon you don't really need Plutomon to be able to do that. Like, so you're just
Yeah, you
adding
just
an
drop
extra
them.
card for what reason?
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas like at least now because of some of the extra spoilers, where it's just like, okay, he could drop the Cerberus for free, and then the Cerberus could then use the Inferno Divide to be able to digivolve. Like it really feels like Bandai wants Plutomon and Titamon to be two different decks that you could commingle to get something, but obviously with Titans just being a macro archetype, they're gonna have a lot of toolboxy potential. But just like what we saw with a lot of the other decks, um, for Time Strangers, like there's very clear and defined lines and signposting that Bandai wants you to do. And Darkfield feels like one of those signposting where it's just like, yeah, it's very clearly dedicated to Plutomon and or Titanmon. It could be used in both, but really this feels like, as of right now, a Plutomon card, because Plutomon feels more defensive than Titamon.
Hmm.
So
I'm also just like not sure where they're going for with werewolf mode in the first place too. Because you said that you thought that the main effects were like, all right, it's got some keywords and it's got the on deletion, but like I'm struggling to figure out what they're trying to go for with this, right? Because it feels like they're trying to make werewolf mode like a top end, right? You go into Cerberus, you Inferno Divide, you get to digivolve something, but then you don't delete it or anything for some reason.
That's
And
probably
then
where the Dober play is supposed to come in, I guess. Like it dies and then Dober's on play deletes a level 4, or wait, no,
no, that's
it's the Cerberus's on delete. That's it.
no, I'm
But
thinking
then
of
the
like,
D-Digivolve didn't matter so much.
yeah, I know, yeah, I know. That's what I'm thinking. It's like, okay, so maybe the idea here is that like, what I don't like is that like it's a bunch of keywords and an on deletion as its main effect. So he werewolf mode and has no inherit, so he does nothing for Plutomon, right? Because I feel like the line is in my mind, werewolf mode goes into Plutomon. But werewolf mode does nothing for you if you do it that way, right? There's no reason for you to evolve into werewolf mode and into Plutomon. You get nothing off of doing that.
Yeah,
I guess like the idea here is that you go Plutomon to place Cerberus to then use Inferno Divide to end on Pluto plus werewolf mode, which seems okay because then you have multiple Digimon, potentially multiple Digimon that have like an on deletion to delete things.
yeah.
Um,
But that's the weird part where it's just like then you get a card like Darkfield where it's just like it gives all of them blocker, but then Werewolf mode already
yeah,
has like all your good cards would already have blocker ideally or have swung so you don't need blocker. So, I don't know. I think Titans just has an
yeah,
identity issue that is gonna need some working out or some kinks to be in because I feel like something is there. It's just figuring out the pieces of that puzzle is a little bit difficult without all the pieces.
yeah. And who knows? Maybe it works out better in practice than it is in theory. Because like maybe going Plutomon for for werewolf to use Inferno Divide for one to end on Pluto plus werewolf mode on board might be better than I give credit for because of the on deletion.
Yeah, and I feel like specifically because it almost feels like Bandai really hates alternative removal types like bottom decking or put in security right now because they just really are hyper focused on trying to have everything delete Digimon at this point. So, which is why Digivolve is like so strong is because like there's so many powerful abilities that we don't want to trigger because we're deleting the opponent's Digimon. But all of the best decks are either A, having D-Digivolve to skirt around that, or B, ignoring it because they can. So, like, it's really interesting to think, like, this is why I think we really need a good true blue deck or, like, a good true green deck that's, like, having these alternative removal types to keep all of these, like, on deletion type stuff in check. Because like what's the other answer, more Medusumon type stuff where it's just like I delete your Digimon and then to prevent your on deletion I have to get rid of it from the trash immediately.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking is that like I think there is enough ways to play around on deletions that this so far the Cerberus inherit for the on and Cerberus inherit to on delete opponent's lowest level doesn't seem that threatening when it feels like that's what they're trying to build up for with this with this line
Right, or you could
is
just
that
stun
you
it
have
and
a lot of
ignore the
answers, right? You
yeah,
have
or you could just stun it and ignore
yeah,
the Digimon entirely.
Sun, Digi, you still have decks that do bottom deck like Atratus Mons, Eclipse Impact, or Medusa slash Amaterasu deal with it fairly handily as well.
Yeah, so I don't know. I wasn't like I read the cards and I was more excited for some of the rarities that they were in, where it's just like, oh, this is a low rarity card. That's kind of neat. It's like slightly breaking conventions that we have already been preconceived to because of just how Bandai's been programming us. Um, but like, all they really spoiled so far was like mostly just the Titans. Oh, they also spoiled the Cherubmon stuff, which, oh my god, uh, Cherubmon's line is like absolutely cracked for Glowing Dawn. Like, oh my god.
Is it?
I think it's incredibly good. More specifically, the level 4. The level 5 is decent. Having Ascension execute a security ability and an on delete ability, plus the removal option just deletes the lowest level, which is like it could be fine. Um, but I'm more specifically talking about like Night Cherubmon being able to use your options out of your trash is like huge. Like this is why purple is like arguably the strongest color in the entire game and the most dangerously designed color is because it has access at the trash more than any other deck or not deck, more than any other color. And trash use is like just quadruple dipping, which as we learned from the BT1 or no, not BT1, BT2 map ban, that's incredibly dangerous to play around with. So it's just like, oh, I could just spam my beat breaks forever, and not be punished. I could spam like just my dual option Digimon forever and not really be punished. Like it allows me to basically just have access at things that generally you wouldn't have access to. Um which is like the point, but it does it in a way that doesn't feel like there's a lot of limitations placed on it, which is like the incredibly dangerous part. Like you're still paying for the option,
Yeah.
yes. But the fact that like, oh, there's no reason for me not to run 4 Night Cherubmons in my Glowing Dawn deck is like kind of a big deal to me.
Really? Because I'm not feeling the same way. The recursion is nice, but like I feel like the game is fast enough that you ideally want to just rather just have the pieces you already need in hand and just rather have the more efficient level fours. Because like for the advantage of being able to use the options from your trash, you lose out on, for one, it costs 2 cards from underneath Tamers as opposed to the one that Armor Lizamon does. Like Armor Liza is basically the same effect, the same cost reduction, except it has to be from your hand instead of from trash. But you only need to trash 1 card from uh one face down from your Tamers, and it reduces by 3 instead of by 2. So I just feel like that card is just like you're losing out a lot of efficiency just to get the ability to get cards from to use from the trash. When you have like other options to get your trash cards anyway, like you could just use the starter deck cheer up mon to recur those cards as well. Um, it's like I don't like it. Like it's nice to have that option, right, to get it from the trash, but like I don't know, and there's a lot of instances where like you'd rather just evolve up into your non dual card level fives, in which case the Cougarmons, both Cougarmons are a lot better as well. So like you're calling this a 4 of, I would call this more like a maybe a 2 of at most.
I mean, I tend to see these types of things and I probably might be overvaluing it, but also like it just feels like it would be a very strong card for the deck. Like an auto include is kind of just like where I'm kind of getting in. The Makoto is also kind of like nuts in my perspective as well. Sure, it's whenever Digimon are deleted. Um, but it's not hard to delete Digimon at this stage of the game. I don't know how much of him I would actually want to play, but he seems like a very reasonable tamer.
Yeah, it's interesting that we've been getting these now for the both Beat Break and Data Squad. They're now giving us 3 cost teamers, which is weird because it's like, okay, now you don't get as much of a value from cheating them out with e-pulse and or DNA charge. Um, I have like I don't know.
Yeah, and they both have start of
They have some.
mains instead of start of
Yeah,
main
the
on
start of main
play.
is the most interesting part, right? So you're missing out on the on play factor, but you're getting a start of main that always gets you a draw one, gain one, as opposed to the four cost tamers that only conditionally gain you a memory. It's
Yeah.
probably like really, really strong in general.
I guess like my
The
big
more I think
thing with
about it.
yeah, I guess my big thing with like Makoto is like the reward for deleting a Digimon is like not sacrificing cards from your hand is kind of a big deal for that deck. But like also having jamming because you don't have a lot of DP increases is like kind of valuable too. So I think like this is kind of just where Bandai is really going to start signposting us to play these types of decks in specific ways. Just like with the Yoshino stuff, where it's just like, okay, you're probably just better off playing the plant stuff for Data Squad and just playing Plant Data Squad, uh, instead of like just Data Squad slop. So I obviously Data Squad has more things going on with the fact that they actually have dedicated megas for all of their core characters versus Beat Break, where the majority of them are going to stop at level fives. Based on the nature of the show and how much we have left, it's I'm very hard pressed to say that we're not going to be seeing a lot of level 6 Digimon in the show. So that means it's not going to translate into a lot of level 6s until like in post, just like what we saw with uh Ghost Games, where like the reason why we didn't have um Arcturus in the show is because the show makers didn't know he existed yet. Same thing with Sirius.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's probably just like a classic case of like miscommunication on Bandai's part, which is not out of the norm for them. But that goes to show that like maybe we'll get level sixes for these in post. But for right now, in the interim of what we're going to be getting, I don't necessarily think we're going to be getting a whole lot of level sixes, which puts a lot of strain on the level sixes we currently have. And it also puts a lot of strain on the level fives because how are we supposed to effectively build decks when things are kind of muddied like this in a sense? Like it does lean us heavier on Glowing Dawn to more slap design, whereas because we have two full complete lines of egg to six for Data Squad, like that signposts us even easier, especially when they all also have their own built-in level 7 too.
Yeah, but I feel like even with both these decks, you're probably still going to be mixing the lines up a little bit, just because with a lot of these, um, each individual like Digimon in them are very like mono. Well, I guess Shine Gray is double colored, but most of the other ones are very monocolored, and so they have like very like limited things that they can do on their own. And so they're probably the best way to build these decks is to mix together like in terms of removal, it's you're gonna fall into a lot of traps if you only have like one type of removal, right?
Right.
So it's still gonna be like probably advantageous to you know to mix and match the different lines to just get the best possible different combination of effects.
I
Because like
100% agree.
yeah, so like even though we're seeing more like you said, seeing more lines given to us to incentivize us to try building a deck of like only one specific character from each of these series. That's definitely going to just not going to be. It's like never going to be as effective as building the swap decks that you know just take all the best parts of them and puts them into one good deck. Because like
Yeah.
I've been reading Ravemon, and it's like, wow, this card reads it like it is. This is not going to make Ravemon a good deck. This is definitely going to be a card for like the Data Squad deck IMO, because it's like it just deletes, right? Like
Yeah.
when Digivolve and by deleting this Digimon or trashing, you delete an opponent's highest DP Digimon. Like this deck needs any more removal. It's kind of disappointing that this card has like nothing that helps you get damage down. which is like feels like a downgrade compared to the EX4 version, which at least makes them pick up their security.
Yeah, I
Um,
I think a lot of people are kind of just like down on some of these Data Squad cards, and even Kyo's new line didn't really like excite me either. Like I don't
yeah, I feel
feel
like in
like
general from the results, some of the reveals we've seen so far, there's actually hasn't been too many exciting cards in general.
yeah,
But
like
like the thing I was gonna get into with Ravemon is that at the very least, what he can do is that the new egg seems kind of cool. The new Pinamon, the on deletion, you can trash a face down to play cost 5 or lower, trade a Scud trait card, which there's a lot of really good and important cards that are 5 play cost and lower in Data Squad. A lot of your level 4s that play your tamers and also your tamers specifically. Like you can do some nonsense where you can go into Ravemon, have him delete himself, go into security, then go Pinamon effect to play like a was it Geogray, I think? Is
yeah,
Geogray on play? Double checking.
I think it's on
One of
play.
the yeah, the new one? Yeah,
Yeah,
on play,
it
which then
should be
lets you
on play
play
when
out like
Digi.
yeah, which then lets you play out the 5 cost Marcus and then lets you do end of turn effects with that, which seems like pretty good to me, right?
Yeah. No,
Seems like a good way to turbo that out.
I think both Data Squad and Glowing Dawn are definitely going to go through a lot of not really identity crisis, but like just like we have a whole bunch of tools that we just need to figure out what's the optimal combination. And that's going to be the most difficult part because they're throwing a lot of tools at us all at once versus a drip feed like they normally do, which I guess is fine, because then it just allows for more testing and more iteration. Granted, like this is Digimon we're talking about. Most of the time, we'll optimize things within 2 weeks, and then the meta gets stale after that. Whereas before, like it used to take at least a month for things to get optimized. Um, but I feel like just
Mhm.
in the age of unification and the age of the internet where information is just easily accessible, um, it just optimization has just been happening faster and faster, which probably puts pressure on the companies to want to make the cards as quickly as possible so that way we don't get bored. Um, but I don't know. I think like maybe I'm reading too much into that.
Maybe.
But we did get a couple of other Time Stranger cards. A lot of people were freaking about the Agiochus stuff and the Canon Yuki and a little bit of cross arts. Like those cards are all incredibly strong.
Yeah, I just want to choose Holy does read crazy. That's probably like maybe the craziest card we've seen so far from the set is just Ajo Chusman Holy, giving
Yeah.
protection from DP minus and Digivolve basically maybe like the few things that you can't just cover with Jupiter Mon's effect on its own, so that it's giga protected.
Yeah, and
Not to
then
mention the inherit too, so that even if you try to remove the Jupiter, you get Digivolved for it. It's crazy.
yes. And then we also have the Jupiter dual card, which is just it is it me or is it just like way more aggressive than the current Jupitermon? And the current Jupitermon already felt pretty aggressive.
Kinda. I mean, it's got engage alliance, so you can like immediately plus plays out a guy, so you can like swing for 2 checks right away.
Yeah.
Um, but he feels like a weird side grade to compared to the original Jupiter. I feel like original Jupiter still seems like the better card all around. Not only can you evolve into it for less because that one has the innate cost reduction based on your security count. This can at minimum cost 2 because of the wide plasmid cost. And I think that its protection is in a weird spot as well. The whole when you would leave or when any TS would leave, you place the Digivobs itself, um, which I don't know. Like since a lot of your stuff triggers off of security being removed, that just seems like it's like the like a worse version of the protection. It does make sense in the context of a lot of the newer Ajo choose losing decode as an inherit and instead having it as the main body effect, so that you can use that so you can return on decode. But it
Right.
still feels like, when you look at like Ajo choose inherit, trashing security, or the digivolving when security is trashed, or like thinking about like, you know, triggering, let's say opponent tries to remove your Jupiter and then you trigger decode and then you trash security to protect and then trigger Inori to evolve your Agiomon, which is also a really good play. In comparison, this one, putting its top stack card on top of security, there's just a lot less of those synergistic plays with that protection. So, like, I don't know. It feels like to me that the old Jupiter, the secret Jupiter, is just a lot better. So I'm not sure what you would use this for. Even other than the fact that it's a dual card, so you can use it to out cards that are protected. But even then, regular Jupiter has lingering DP minus, so you still get around most of the protected threats in the format outside of maybe like reboot.
Yeah. No, I kind of feel you on that one, cuz like you said, the obvious signposting is they want you to use AGO Choose Holy in combination with this, in combination with the Canon Yuki, so that way you could be like, okay, do my thing, Canon Yuki, trigger, be able to use Wide Plasma for basically free, and then do all of your crazy plays from there, and then passing turn, you have Engage, plus Alliance to be able to make an attack at big numbers with big damage. But because the old one also burns security, that's like arguably better than just extra
Yeah,
security attack. So I think
yeah,
like it's going to be really interesting to see how Agiomon develops, because similarly to a lot of like these slot based archetypes with like Glowing Dawn and Data Squad, like they just have a lot of different tools. So like people were already discussing like, oh, now that we know all the level fives, what's the optimal level five lineup? And it's just like, well, you have to understand what your win con is to then determine how the rest of the deck is going to function. So I guess we just need to know the last Jupiter mons in order to really put those pieces together to figure out what's more optimal. But like even right now, just running like literally one of almost everything is just like kind of nuts, because it does give you a shit ton of utility in order to do kind of just whatever you feel like you want, as long as you're able to see the card. Because
hmm
like I could see plays where it's just like, okay, I gain rush off of like promo AGO choose red, and then that allows me to then like end of turn cannon or Danon Cannon, use Wide Plasma, delete bodies, and then engage, and then gain the attack. I think the AGO choose gains rush instead of just has it natively, so I think that works.
I believe so as well. Because I'm pretty sure I remember dying to that a couple more than a couple of times in testing.
Yeah. So like it
Yeah,
it
Gains
feels
Rush.
like it feels like there's a lot of like flexibility in terms of like how you could play these cards, and it's just up to the players to figure out what's the more optimal way. And that's going to be the fun part, which is going to be exciting. And it feels like that's just the running theme of the set, is like we're just getting a lot of tools that's enhancing what was already good to just make them better, which is weird from a BT set, because most of the time BT sets generally don't do that. So I'm curious to see like what new stuff outside of 7 codes, because that feels like Rookie Rush in a nutshell. Rookie Rush that leads into a level 7 as of right now, based on the few cards that we have. Like I don't know what other new things we're going to be getting, cuz Kun Kunlun is going to be updating the Shambhala decks, and then the
Mhm.
rest of it is just upgrades to the starter decks and Time Strangers, and then we have the new apps deck, and what? That's the majority of the set right there.
We got Chronomon to look forward to. That's basically going to be a new deck.
Oh, right. Is he gonna be, or is he gonna play off of Titans? I don't know.
I mean, I feel like he's probably going to be like a hybrid, like uses Time Stranger, but is also his own thing.
Okay,
Kind of
I could.
like Famous Kathir BL Star, right? Most of like yeah, she's a Time Stranger card and can use a lot of the Time Stranger stuff, but like almost entirely the cards for her archetype mention Three Musketeers instead.
That's fair. Uh, and he's the main antagonist of the game, which everyone loves their antagonist decks that get one set of support, but because he's Time Stranger, he actually has more possible support than what we probably are thinking about.
Mhm.
So I guess yeah, he's a potential option because like we already got the leak for all of those high rarity cards, so it's just like those are the main core decks that they would want to push us towards, um, at least like based on normal patterns.
Yeah,
So
I mean, there could also be some other like surprises in low rarity. Um, I can't believe I forgot that Tyrant Capitary was in Time Stranger, and I was kind of surprised that we got Tyrant Capitary Titan in this set. Mainly because maybe because like I was like, um, what's the word? I got tunnel visioned on into thinking about the reveals based around just
the new
the uncut
stuff,
sheet leak.
yeah,
So I forgot to think about the fact that should have been expecting Green Koaga and Tyrant Kabuteri for the Titan deck. And Tyrant Kabuteri, this card is crazy for the old Insect Tyrant Kabuteri deck, right? Probably much more so than playing him in Titans himself, even though Titans has enough discard to actually make his assembly a lot more feasible compared to Insects. But like I don't know, in Insects just like evolving into this for 3 to give itself the option protection, and then evolving for 2 into the old Tyrant Tributary to give yourself Digimon effect protection. That might bring Tyrant Tributary back into the fold
he just
as a
now
deck.
needs, yeah, he just now needs to find a win condition and a way to execute that plan fast enough.
Yeah.
That's the only problem that I see is like Tyrant Kabuterimon before didn't really have a good win condition. It was just can I stall my opponent out? And he just needs another. Like he just needs a little bit more support. A little oomph. So but
Yeah,
yeah,
Grand
it
Kawaga can help there as well, since it gives you Alliance, and you can also play that off of Tyrant as long as you have fewer cards than your opponent.
I know more importantly people are thinking about maybe Grandis. So like we have another Kabute or Kawagamon for Grand Kawaga. I don't think that card like that's gonna be a deck again, but it's technically something people would think about because all of oh that's a static ability. I thought it was like like when digivolving all of your stuff gained this. Nope, never mind.
No, no, then yeah, definitely, yeah. It's definitely way gonna be better in the Tyrant deck.
Yeah. So but yeah, what from outside of Plutomon still being hesitant on that, what are you currently looking forward to in BT26?
Hmm. I don't know. Uh, when the sheet was revealed, Pluto was maybe like the thing number one that I was looking forward to, because I can't like, because I mentioned before, everything else here is like support for older decks, and it's mostly older decks that are like I'm not playing, right? Because we're still waiting on Merva plus Bacchus plus Ceres. Um, and I don't expect those to be anything other than support for the existing TS decks, and I don't play those decks right now. Similar with Juno, um,
Yeah,
maybe
hysteric
slightly
mode.
interested in what Chronomon will do, but I feel like I need to actually start seeing that deck, like seeing like anything from it to see whether or not I get excited about it. So right now for me, it's just waiting to see if Zombie Pluto will somehow save this Titan list, or if maybe I remember like I used to really like playing Merva Mondex, whether it was like back during BT 11, I was like playing Lilith Loop to enable Slam Merva, just generate enough memory to slam her. Or if I'm talking, or we're talking just about like I used to play like pure Merva, just play a bunch of boosts to generate the memory that you need to slam Merva or Minerva into Merva decks. So I don't know if maybe the new Merva that we're expecting is most likely going to be for TS, but like fingers crossed it synergizes with some of the older cards. Maybe you might make a new Minerva based strategy.
Yeah, I don't know. Or maybe it's gonna be signposting another Time Stranger fork where it's just like, okay, they want you to do Minerva Merva combo.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Still a lot of cards left. Currently, I'm kind of excited for obviously Glowing Dawn because that's something I've already invested in. Glowing and
Mhm.
Appmon. So like Dantemon is probably going to be a big game changer for apps being a level 7 that they could use. But the fact that like 7 code looks like Rookie Rush 2.0 is kind of like exciting to me in a sense. Just because like, oh, I could actually maybe reasonably try to do something like Rookie Rush, where the idea is just like I'm just going to be throwing these guys into security as much as I humanly possibly could, or like generating enough value and resources from them, and then I slam the option or slam the Digimon with assembly or whatever, and then I just can hit the ground running, similar to Susanomon. I don't know. Um, Still a lot of cards left because it really just depends on what Dantemon is going to be doing that really might recontextualize and redefine apps as a whole, because there are some app decks that just were not good. Even looking at Japanese data, like the majority of app decks were not good unless it was like literally OTKing, which only
Mhm.
three at before Rebootmon, uh, the most popular and powerful one was Hades, or technically it was Gaia then Hades, but Hades has more intricate OTK lines that you could achieve, but it was more complicated of a deck. I
Mhm.
digress. I don't think after this there's going to be too much app stuff, so but my interest is going to start waning pretty hard. Um, like we have technically like in quotation marks virus reboot that they can make and maybe a couple of promos for some of the stuff. But I think apps is definitely winding down, and with Glowing Dawn going to be finishing its anime this season, that's going to be winding down. So maybe that's when Elysian is going to come out. I mean, product wise, that is when Elysian's going to be coming out because that's the next set of starter decks and what the focus is going to be. But I don't know. Royal Knights and Demon Lords are definitely on the way, but
Yeah. After this set, that's I'm in the Demon Lord's waiting room.
right. I mean, you're sitting pretty on Beelstar as like the premier deck to beat because the thing that I'm sitting here and I'm thinking is like, do these decks beat X? And X is usually like the big metaphor runners. And that's kind of just how I analyze decks. I don't know if you do the same type of a method where it's just like, okay, does like Machine Dramon beat Beelstar? If the answer is yes, does Machine Dramon beat Bears? Does Machine Dramon beat X? Like I just literally go through. You could almost do it like spreadsheet style, and kind of just figure out like, okay, if my matchup spread is this, then this deck should be good enough to be considered meta viable. If not, then I could probably just throw it away and forget about it even existing. So,
I'm
I mean, that's just because I stare at a lot of data. So that's just how my brain puts it together.
Yeah, I mean, I also like consider like whether or not a new deck would like be able to compete with the current meta decks. Though sometimes I find myself thinking that that can be like a flawed way to look at it. So sometimes a deck can just win just by ignoring
I
what the
mean,
other decks
yeah.
are capable of if they're just fast enough.
Yeah, just look at the slew of turn 2 OTKs we have and Omnimon Alter S.
Because
So that's
I
fair.
wouldn't say that Volcanus straight up beats any of the current meta decks, but like it can just sort of win the game. and like not care what you're capable of,
Yeah.
and it's doing pretty well for itself still.
Yeah. But so hopefully Chronomon's gonna be interesting to pique your interest a little bit further in what BT26 is gonna be offering. I still think like stuff like Beelstar is gonna be strong for a while just because of just where the game
Yeah,
is and the fact that right now there's just a small pocket of decks that are viable just because of the big shifts in the game. Um and a lot of players are still trying to figure out what they want with these big shifts.
yeah. It's true that I can just sit on BL Star for a while, but I feel like I'm getting tired of like just having just this one deck that I enjoy playing right now. So it'd be nice if like something new would come up. That's what I was hoping that VB would be, but like after actually playing it in a couple of online locals, I'm like it's not it. It's just the deck is just not good. So that's it's a little disappointing that I couldn't find like a second deck for me to play. I'm hoping Titans is good enough. If not, at least Chronomon or something else piques my interest, so that I have like more than one deck to play besides just the BL Star.
I feel you. Um, I mean that's natural. Like you play one thing long enough, you kind of get a little bit tired of it. Even though like
Yeah,
you still like it a lot, that doesn't necessarily change that. It's just like okay, I want a little bit something different, and I think that's kind of like where a lot of players are leaning towards TB because it's like easy to build, self-enclosed, and like incredibly efficient.
the problem with me with TB is again it's just too simple. When I was playing VB, and I thought like, yeah, this is kind of nice, and like I of course that kind of is ass. But then I was in a practice session. I played a VB for a bit, then I swapped back to BL Star, and I was all like, oh my god, this feels so much nicer. The play lines are so much smoother. It feels so much more flexible. I just wish more decks out there were on the same level as BL Star. Rather than bringing BL Star down a peg, I just wish more decks were played as nicely as it.
I 100% feel you. Cuz like I don't want necessarily like the game to be on the level of like if everything's broken then nothing's broken, but I would like a
Mhm.
little bit more parity between what these modern decks are doing versus the rest of the entire game cuz like I do feel incredibly bad when I do just like take a deck that's playing in modern conventions versus one that doesn't, and like gameplay wise you could see there's this huge divide in what my decks are doing. Even TB, even like though it's like super simple, the majority of the decks in the entire game don't have the tools to answer it. So it's just like, of course it's going to do well, is because like a lot of decks just functionally can't deal with it. It's like, what other decks are hard slamming level 7s and just chunking a whole bunch of security while having a very solid toolbox of cards to use at any given moment? Like, not a lot. And it sounds like the deck is doing a lot, but that's what modern Digimon is. Because like the big difference between TB and SW is the fact that SW is it's the argument of um playing to not lose versus playing to win. TB is playing to win, SW is playing to not lose. And sure, not losing sometimes means that you could win, but sometimes it also doesn't. And like
I have
you're
no idea what they were thinking with SW. That deck does nothing.
I mean, like you get into like the idea is like you're gonna have your two like floodgates working in tandem with each other to ideally lock the opponent out of the game, which again, a lot of older decks are going to fall victim to that, but any of the new modern decks, they could kind of just ignore it, which is crazy.
Yeah, or play around it, or dismantle your board in some way. I don't know. It has so many holes, and it gives up so much memory to make its boards.
It does, and like and their win con isn't really that great with Set and Gokumon, but again, like it's supposed to be the more
Yeah.
defensive deck. And I feel like that's kind of just the idea on where defense isn't necessarily good in Digimon unless it's like baked in already pre-canned in a way that you've already dealt enough damage. So like that's kind of just the direction that I feel like the game is heading towards, where it's just like, okay, you have these decks like Machine German that are just the true control stall decks that are actually doing their job efficiently, but they don't make the game fun or engaging, in a sense. And Bandai acknowledges when that happens. Like they notice it. And that's probably partially why they don't make those decks either A very often or B very good. So
Mhm.
it goes back to my Hearthstone days, as showing my age here, when the game first started with Ben Brode at the helm, as like one of the key designers. uh there was a saying that one of the streamers that I listened to all the time would say: the meta starts with aggro and the meta ends with aggro. And I feel like that is double, if not triple, true for Digimon. You want to play as aggressively as possible and stay being as aggressive as possible.
The game's design, I think, just generally favors aggression.
No,
It's a very your turn is your turn type of game.
yeah, and
There's
that's
not a lot
kind
of
of
opponent turn interaction.
yeah, and that's kind of why, like, I think Bandai is leaning towards all of these like on deletes and trying not to have as much like bottom decking type of abilities, is because that's where the majority of the interaction's coming from. It's just like, oh, if I delete your Digimon, which most of the decks are going to delete Digimon, then what is the fallout of that? And what are the sequences that are going to be happening because of that? And that's I mean, I might again be reading too much into this, but that's partially why I feel like soft removal right now is just like at its prime, on top of just anything with alternative removal, because we don't get a whole lot of it. So I don't know, but the game is still really interesting in terms of how it's growing and developing. I think this year is going to be a very big year in terms of its overall development. Tournament wise, it doesn't feel like we're getting any kind of reductions in terms of like player attendance. So it feels like Digimon definitely is a very stable game. In case anyone's like fearing or doom posting or whatever, it's like, no, we're fine. Game's not going anywhere. And I think Elysian, when that comes out, is going to do some absolutely massive boost to the game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm also just really curious to see what the new Elysian starter decks look like because that's an archetype that could potentially like we've been getting these starter decks that are like these complicated, like multicolored, um, like super trait heavy things for a while now. Elysian might be an opportunity for them to like go back to basics to an extent, and I'm really curious to see what they'll do with it.
I kind of hope they do, because, like, Glowing Dawn, as accessible as it is, play pattern wise, it's not necessarily the most new player friendly. Um, but, like, I don't know. I think it wasn't necessarily designed to be. It was actually just designed to allow, like, your average Joe to actually spend time to learn the game, and if they did, then they're rewarded for it. And their entry point was just a lot lower than investing into something like TB, as an example, where it's easier to play but more expensive to get into. But that's what Bandai wants. They want multiple different ways to enter the game, whether it's going to be monetary or skill based, is entirely up to just you, the player. And that's like good in a sense. So, oh, but yeah, I think we have rambled on long enough. Thank you, Tesero, for coming back and joining me this week. Um,
Of course.
Next week might be a little bit different because I supposedly am accepting a job offer. So hours
Oh,
and time and stuff is
congrats.
definitely going to be changing. Yeah, I'm super excited because I've been waiting way too long to try to get back into the job market. So the job itself isn't anything crazy from what the job description says, but just wanted to give you that heads up that supposedly recording times might need to be adjusted.
That's fine. Yeah, we'll talk about that when that comes to fruition.
Right. I just gotta pass a background check and a drug screening. So, thank you for coming on, and thank you everyone for listening all the way to the end. I know this was a slightly longer episode, but that's just because there was a lot to discuss between all of the spoilers and all of the tournaments and data that we got. So, thank you, everyone, for making it all the way to the end and listening. And we hope to see you in the next episode. Later.
Okay.